It's important to have hard conversations that connect directly to illness, death and dying, end of life. It's very, very important. And I recognize that it's not easy. I recognize that such conversations sometimes are met with superstition. I meet people who feel like they don't want to talk about that or plan for the end of their lives, even though they are navigating serious illness, because there's superstition. Well, if I plan for it, somehow how I'll manifest it. Somehow I'll expedite my demise. And I meet other people who, let's say, are caring for their elderly parents, caring for a partner who's much older, or navigating dementia, and they're torn between wanting the best for their loved one while simultaneously not wanting to stop their own lives. They don't want to lose their good years, the future in front of them. Maybe they're in their 60s. The other person or people are in their 80s or 90s. Maybe they're in their 40s and their loved ones are, 60s, 70s. And there's this conflict. And what happens is resentment forms and builds. Responsibility, the weight and gravity of responsibility, of feeling obligated, all of those things become stacked on top of each other. It just builds and builds and builds and builds. And so when I talk to them, we're looking at all of those layers and trying to help them find balance. One of the problems with finding balance is hard conversations had never been had. And so expectations are just floating out there, and there's no sounding board for where they will land. There's no plan for how one will navigate the latter years. And so I really want to encourage you to start having hard conversations. If there are people in your life that maybe they're ill or they're getting older, and you can foresee, especially if you're paying attention, because no one is getting out of life alive, right? We're all moving toward that same door, which is the exit. So when we have people in our lives, it's so important to set aside some time and have hard conversations to plan for the what ifs. What if I become diagnosed with dementia? Who will be a part of my care team? What resources do I have? What if I'm diagnosed with cancer? Who will be a part of my support team? What resources do I have? If this is terminal and my body is really no longer what it has been, what are some things I would and would not want for myself? For example, how do I feel about CPR? Some people will say, give me everything. I want CPR. Even though maybe regardless of their age, they're fragile, they're very thin, they have multiple medical problems, multiple comorbidities, the problem on top of the problem, and then the subsequent problems. It's like the concept of just let me go is beyond one's ability to conceive, because we're all trying to stay forever. Even though we know forever is not a part of our staying. That's not the plan. It's not going to happen. But the thought of saying, well, if my heart stops, let me go, it's like, no. If it stops, bring me back. But do you really know what bring me back means? First of all, whether or not one can be brought back is one matter. The other matter is, do you know what brought back may look like, right? Just because your heart has resumed beating doesn't mean you'll ever leave ICU. Doesn't mean you'll ever get off of tubes and all of the things. Doesn't mean you'll ever be who you are. And now you're in another state, a state you would not have chosen for yourself. So these are the kinds of conversations we really need to have, because things happen in all moments. If I have a terminal illness, a life-limiting illness, if I have progressive dementia or any of those things and my heart stops, do not bring me back, because I'll be brought back into this reality of my suffering. I'm inevitably going to die. Now I'm just prolonging it because I can't conceive of not being here, but my heart has already stopped. So I'm not even here inside of the consciousness of conceiving, not being here. Leave me where I am in the empty space of not being here. Because a lot of times people think it's like TV. Oh, CPR, you bounce back and you're back on the horse the next day. But we in the medical field, healthcare providers, we know it's not that way. And some people, they'll say, well, I've had CPR and it worked. I mean, there will always be the outliers. But if you're already compromised, then you're looking at damaged ribs, broken, damaged chest plate. You're looking at a lot of pain and suffering to resume pain and suffering. So these are the, and I often say I'm not invested in one way or the other. We all have our journey and path. I just think it's important for people to be informed, right? And so these are the kinds of conversations that we have to have. That's why there are things like advanced healthcare directors, where it asks if you, for whatever reason, couldn't make decisions for yourself, who would make them on your behalf? And you name your agent. And if that person isn't available, you have some alternates. And here's the thing about that. Before you name someone who would make medical decisions on your behalf, if you weren't able to, make sure you talk to them about the decisions you would want them to make. Because what if you did not want CPR, but now you're compromised so you can't say it, and your decision maker said, give them CPR, because they're emotionally unable to reconcile. It's important to have these kinds of conversations. Who's on your team? That's why there are physicians' orders for life-sustaining treatment that says DNR, do not resuscitate, or CPR, ICU level treatment, artificial nutrition, don't resuscitate. Give me selective, let me pick and choose. And I definitely do not want feeding tubes, because if I can't eat by mouth, no thanks. So we have all of these options, right? That you have to decide, and no one should have to make those decisions for you. But again, this is why it's important to have these hard conversations with our families. They need to be a part of regular talk, so that we can get rid of the stigma, get rid of the conversations being so taboo or scary. Why is it scary? When we plan to have children, you get all of the things together. You get a car seat, you grab your bag, you do all those things. Well, that's easier because I'm bringing life into the world. But guess what? Bringing life into the world often comes with complications. You never know what's going to happen. You're planning, though. So the best sort of death is one that's planned for, because you never know what's coming your way. Even with treatment, what type of treatments would you want to have? And then we take it a step further and we talk about, okay, what about funeral stuff? So many people go in debt, truly, trying to afford the big funeral, the procession, the huge casket, all of the things, all of the things. They want the bells and whistles. But few people leave the money for the bells and whistles. Few people actually sit and talk to their family about what they would want, or write it out and put it in a safekeeping. So then you have people scrambling to figure things out, or getting loans, or borrowing money, or creating funds for, this occasion. When my father died back in 2003, he hadn't had any of that. And back then I was, what was I, 28, 29, I don't remember, 28. And, there was no money for that. There was no plan for that. It just happened, and it actually fell on my shoulders. It was a $10,000 funeral. I didn't have $10,000. So just imagine all of the things that come along with trying to do that. And so for myself, someone who has worked in hospice for almost a decade at the time, and again now in palliative care and all of the things, I want to be cremated. I won't be here to know all the things, but I want to be cremated. Very simple. A direct cremation. No ceremony, none of those things, just a simple direct cremation. And then whomever loves me, they can gather, have some wine, maybe a single malt scotch, some burgers, some chicken wings, flats, and be about it. Swap stories. Talk about how direct I am in my communication and how I'm sort of, straight, no chaser kind of person. And that I'm also sweet and all of the things, and funny and all of the things, right? Have a ball. But do not spend money. That's my responsibility. Will your body to science. It's free. Use an online service that doesn't have a storefront, where it's only like $1,000. There are so many options, but these again are conversations. And if you want the big to do, have the big to do, but leave the big to do money for the people who will be executing your big to do. But what happens is we avoid, and then one day we die and everyone's like, oh my goodness. And then they feel badly. Oh, well, we have to do all these things. I feel bad because, I don't want it to seem cheap, but I can't afford it. And I'm not getting any help from my siblings or other people. All of that. That's real. I talk to people regularly about all of that and help hold the gravity of their emotional conflict, the pain of not being supported, trying to do the right thing, being misunderstood by family members who feel like they're not doing enough, even though those family members aren't helping. There's so much. Have the hard conversations. Do away with the so much. It's important. And I know I'm saying this very straightforward, no chaser, because here's the thing. We miss moments and opportunities by being afraid to have hard conversations. Being able to sit and talk about death and dying is an opportunity to get to know what your loved ones value, what you value. It's an opportunity to answer questions, talk through fears, reconcile, heal. It's an opportunity to really be close and connect rather than avoiding, denying, then one day it's just left there. So today on the mat, I really want to encourage and invite you to begin having this hard conversation, or multiple hard conversations. Hopefully they get easier with time, about end of life, about what you would or wouldn't want for yourself. CPR, DNR, chemotherapy, immunotherapy, dialysis. What is it that you want or wouldn't want? What are the expectations? What are we delegating? What are the directives? That way you can have peace. That way you can have holding. And that way, whomever is responsible for executing your wishes, they can do it without conflict and struggle. emotional, mental, or financial, because it's already going to be wrought with grief. The last thing that you want to add to that is the complexities around them having to decide, make hard decisions without having first talked to you about them, or to foot the cost of something they can't afford. It's a way of honoring yourself and honoring them. It's a way of leading with gratitude and compassion for self and for them. So it isn't necessarily easy. It's often hard, and it won't hurt you. It's actually a gift that you'll be giving to yourself and your family. So have the hard conversations. You can do it.